Hello friends, welcome back to the Amazing American Stories. When we talk about traveling within US or any other place, we should start it with one of the best places what we like. I have a couple of places within US which I always wanted to go back. And one such place is an amazing place, which is the first national park in the US. Not only in the US, it is the first national park all over the world. The amazing Yellowstone National Park. There are too many national parks in the US, but Yellowstone is not only the first national park, but the largest national park too. Established in 1872, Yellowstone Park is a 3,500 square mile wilderness recreation area on top of a super volcano. Mostly in Wyoming, the park spreads into parts of Montana and Idaho too. These are the three American states in the north region of the US. Yellowstone features dramatic canyons, alpine rivers, lush forests, hot springs, and gushing geysers, including its most famous, the Old Faithful. It's also home to hundreds of animal species, including bears, wolves, bison, elk, and antelope. Yellowstone National Park contains more than 10,000 hydrothermal features, including geysers, hot springs, mud spots, fumaroles, steam vents, and travertine terraces. These hydrothermal features are very beautiful, interesting, and unique because of their variable sizes, colors, activities, microbial mats, and temperatures. If you ask me, there are two major categories of attractions in the Yellowstone National Park. The first one is the 10,000 plus hydrothermal activities spread all over the park. Hydrothermal activities means those activities when water and heat act together. The second category of attraction in Yellowstone is the abundance of wildlife, particularly the American bison. Yellowstone is home to more than 200 species of animals, from grizzly bears to bald eagle. Bison, wolves, bears, elk, and nearly 60 other species of mammals roam their natural habitat. This is also home to more than 300 species of birds, different species of fish, reptiles, and some amphibians. You can reach the park in many ways. If you are close enough, it's better to drive to the park. There are few regional airports you can fly to, like Yellowstone Regional Airport, Jackson Hole Airport, or Idaho Falls Regional Airport. Jackson Hole Airport is the most frequent airport for visitors wanting to experience the park. The easiest and closest international airport is Bozeman Yellowstone International Airport, that is in Montana. This is also called the gateway to Yellowstone. It is the busiest airport in Montana with non-stop services to 20 plus American cities. Since we are on the west coast of the USA, we flew to Salt Lake City in Utah and drove north to the park. From Salt Lake City to Yellowstone, it takes around 5 to 5.5 hours by car. Every national park will have multiple entrances from all the sides of the park. Yellowstone National Park has 5 entrances around it. If you watch red circles and the letters in red, those are the entrances. I feel the west entrance is closest to the park attractions. I would suggest you stay close to the west entrance. Idaho is the state that lies on the west side of the Wyoming, and its border is very close to the Yellowstone National Park. In Idaho, there is a city called West Yellowstone, which is close to the west entrance of the Yellowstone Park. West entrance of Yellowstone National Park is just 5 to 10 minutes away from this city. They have enough hotels, restaurants, and grocery shops. So it is better to stay in this city. You can find lots of Airbnb around this area also. You can stay any place around any other entrance, but they may be a little farther from the major park attractions. You can also stay inside the park if you want to have more opportunities for sightseeing without the crowds, but you may need to reserve the accommodation in advance. Let me mention one more thing before we get into the first attraction of the Yellowstone National Park. It is better to stay minimum 3 days in Yellowstone. That is at least minimum. Don't go for the 1 day or 2 day. You won't see anything. If you have 4 days, it is good. If you have 5 days, it is good. If you plan to hike or do any other activities other than sightseeing, then you need more days, 7 days or 8 days. You can really enjoy the park. What you see on the screen now is a road. something like number 8. This is called the Grand Loop. You have to remember this name, Grand Loop. Most of the attractions are around this Grand Loop. I have colored the Grand Loop with 3 colors. If you only have 3 days, select one color on the first day and visit that area and attractions there. Other 2 days you can select the other 2 colors and visit those attractions. That way you can at least cover most of the attractions around the Grand Loop in 3 days. Let us see the first attraction in Yellowstone National Park. It is nothing but the world famous Old Faithful Geyser.
Here it goes. Oh, that's awesome. Oh, that's way higher than I thought. I thought it would be like this. Whoa, God. This is awesome. Whoa. That bird just flew right by.
You know what a geyser is? A geyser is a rare kind of hot spring that is under pressure and erupts, sending jets of water and steam into the air. Geysers are made from a tube-like hole in the Earth's surface that runs deep into the crust. This tube is always filled with water. The famous geyser Old Faithful currently erupts around 20 times a day and can be predicted with a 90% confidence rate within a 10-minute variation. It erupts every 60 to 90 minutes. You will see multiple basins in the Grand Loop area of this Yellowstone National Park. A basin is an area with hundreds of hydrothermal features collected together or where you see together. You need to walk around to see all these geysers, mud pots and hot springs in that basin. Another major question from people who like to visit the park will be about the entrance fee. The entrance fee is around $35 per car or a non-commercial vehicle. This is a 7-day pass, so you can drive in and out within these 7 days anytime you want. If you plan to visit multiple parks or federal lands within a year, get a yearly pass, which costs only $80. A lot of people asked another interesting question. If they stay near the park, can they walk and see all the attractions in the Yellowstone National Park? The answer is no. Yellowstone National Park is too huge, it's too big, you need a vehicle to go around. You can download the Yellowstone National Park map from the internet and follow your trip based on that. As the park is too huge, your mobile phones will not work inside the park. There is a Yellowstone mobile app with the maps, which will be very helpful to drive around the park and while visiting the basins. Old Faithful is located in Yellowstone's Upper Geyser Basin. The geyser viewing area is most accessible and visitor friendly too. And there are benches around the area so you can sit there and watch the Old Faithful geyser. And also they have a large parking lot, so parking will not be an issue and you don't need to pay for parking any places within the park. In the beautiful visitor center, you can also check the next eruption time of the Old Faithful. If you look at this Grand Loop map, this Old Faithful is in the southwest. That means the almost at the bottom of that green colored road. This geyser can vary in height from 100 to 180 feet with an average near 130 to 140 feet. Eruptions normally last 2 minutes to 5 minutes. To understand the wonders of the Yellowstone National Park, we should first have a little understanding of the geology and the history of this area. Yellowstone is a caldera of a supervolcano. You know, a caldera is a large depression formed when a volcano erupts and collapses. The Yellowstone caldera was created by a massive volcanic eruption approximately more than 500,000 years ago. Exactly, it is 631,000 years ago. So it is that old. Later, lava flows filled in much of the caldera. On the screen, if you look at that red lines, that is the caldera of this supervolcano. Now it is around 30 miles wide and 45 miles long. Normally, in calderas, Earth's crust will be thin. It means molten magma is close to the Earth's surface compared to other places of the Earth. When you visit Yellowstone and when you are walking or driving to see these basins and geysers and hot springs or whatever, you are actually walking or driving just above that hot magma. The Earth's crust underneath your feet is very thin compared to the other places. Now let's check how does a geyser erupt. Water deep in the earth is superheated by the molten rocks or magma. Because the water is deep underground, it is also at a high pressure that prevents it from becoming steam. Eventually, the superheated water becomes very hot and becomes ready to vaporize. At this stage, it triggers an explosive eruption of water and steam at the geyser's vent. Mainly, there are 5 types of hydrothermal features found here. The first one, as I mentioned, just geysers. The second type is hot springs. Then we have mud pots, travertine terraces, and the last type is fumaroles or steam vents. Yellowstone was set aside as the world's first national park because of these hydrothermal wonders. Yellowstone has the world's greatest concentration of geysers than any other place on the earth. Let's go through some safety tips before we go more details into the Yellowstone other attractions. The first one is the walkways found around the thermal activities in this area. You must be using walkways to see and enjoy everything in Yellowstone. It is dangerous to step out of walkways as there are chemicals and hot acidic water around. These boardwalks and trails protect not only you but the delicate thermal formations too. Water in hot springs can cause severe fatal burns. So remember to keep your children close and do not let them run on the boardwalks. Do not touch thermal features or run off. Swimming or soaking in hot springs is prohibited. More than 20 people have died from burns suffered after they entered or accidentally fell into the Yellowstone's hot springs. Pets are not allowed here. Do not throw objects into hot springs or other hypothermal features. You may smell a lot of gases around while you are walking. Toxic gases may accumulate to dangerous levels in these hydrothermal areas. If you begin to feel sick while exploring geyser basins, leave the area immediately. Finally, let me tell one more note. So you should listen to the sound of these hydrothermal activities. So it is good to listen to the sound of that to understand more about them. I mentioned there are multiple hydrothermal features like geysers, hot springs, mud pots, travertine terrace, fumaroles, etc. So the basic reason for all these hydrothermal features are the same. When the Earth's crust is thin, water deep in the earth gets overheated by the super hot magma. But what type of hydrothermal feature is formed at a place is based on multiple factors. For example, the space or chambers underneath the earth, the availability of quantity of the water, the size of the vents through which the water can escape, the type of the rocks or soil at that location, or within that soil or rock itself, what type of elements are found, whether graphite, sulfate, or things like that. So all these things together decide what type of hydrothermal feature to form at that location. Grand Prismatic Spring is another most beautiful attraction in Yellowstone. This is the largest hot spring in the United States and the third largest in the world. This is also one of the most photographed locations. You can see that it is very, very colorful. Look at those brilliant colors. The word prismatic, that itself means brilliantly colored. The Grand Prismatic Hot Spring is in the Midway Geyser Basin. The diameter of this hot spring is 370 feet. Its temperature is nearly boiling. At different spots, it has different temperatures ranging from 63 to 87 degrees Celsius. That's around 145 to 185 degree Fahrenheit. Look at the color around that blue water. These colors are caused by bacteria and thermophils. Thermophils are nothing but heat-loving algae that contain colorful pigments. Even though this water is hot, there are something living in it. Each color of algae is specific to a particular temperature range. The highest temperature is in the middle. That's obvious because that will be the source of this hot spring. The water gradually cools as it flows outward from its source. As it moves outward, the temperature will be less. So across the hot spring, the temperature varies from 63 to 87 degrees Celsius. Deep beneath this place, magma from an active volcano heats the water and it rises to the surface through narrow openings or cracks in the rocks. The result is a hot spring that pours almost 500 gallons of hot water each minute into the Firehole River, Minerals dissolved in this hot water are deposited and gradually build this gracefully terraced shoulders of this feature. Look at the middle part of this hot spring. The intense blue color in the center is due to the sunlight being scattered by very fine particles suspended in the water. It is the same reason why we see the sky as blue. Mudpots are another type of hydrothermal feature. Although mudpots are not that picturesque as hot springs and pools, these turbulent pools of hot, muddy water and bizarre landscape are another feature that makes Yellowstone National Park so unique. You will see the water boiling in the mudpots. It is not actually boiling, it's called rolling. It's actually the gas beneath the earth rises up and escapes through this muddy water as bubbles. We can see more about mudpots and other features like travertine terraces and fumaroles later in another video. I want to tell you one more thing here. I only mentioned a couple of the hydrothermal features in Yellowstone. Don't think that Yellowstone is only just this. There are more than 10,000 such small to big features in this area. So mentioning everything is not possible. I have shown many of them without any narration in this video. If you missed them, please go back and watch the video once more. You can drive to each basin, park your car, and walk around to see all these features in those basins. Just to mention them, I did not go in detail, like Mammoth Hot Springs, Norris Geyser Basin, Artist Pain Pots, Lower Geyser Basin, Midway Geyser Basin, that is the place where the Grand Prismatic Spring is, Upper Geyser Basin, that is where the Old Faithful is, and there is another basin which is called West Thumb, that is near the Yellowstone Lake. In the beginning of the video, I mentioned a second category of attractions, the wildlife of Yellowstone, mainly the gigantic animal bison. This animal belongs to the wild cattle species and it is native to North America. I will cover bison and other wild animals in Yellowstone National Park in the next video, which will be mostly next week. So to watch these next videos and coming other travel videos, please subscribe to this channel. Enable notification by touching the bell icon. Remember to select all option when you enable the notification by touching the bell icon. And one more thing it is, from my experience and comments from the people, if you are watching this on the mobile phone, to subscribe, keep the phone vertical, not in horizontal. You will see the subscribe button below the video on the right side. If you have any question or comment, please feel free to write it as a comment under this video. Okay then, let us see next week with a new video. Until then, bye bye, take care and stay safe. Thank you.